From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Keep the promise, read it! Keep the promise, read it! Keep the promise, read it!
The rallying cries at the State House over pension reform clearly had an impact on legislative leaders. Instead of a potential 19-year drought on annual cost of living increases, retirees could see a raise every 5 years if the market plays nice. And judges, once excluded from the COLA cut, are in the soup with the rest of them. But the hybrid plan, a pension 401k style retirement system, is still on for everyone but public safety workers. The big losers in the plan, Governor Lincoln Chafee and municipal leaders like Mayor Angel Tavares, who called for the same reform on independently managed and troubled city and town pensions. This week, reaction from the public official who pushed pension reform to the top of the state's agenda, General Treasurer Gina Raimondo.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi and political reporter for Rhode Island Public Radio, Ian Donis. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Treasurer.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on the program. I know it was a late night. Last night we're taping this on a Friday morning. As your legislation goes through the meat grinder, if you will, legislators are taking bits and pieces out. We've already seen this in both finance committees, changing the COLA funding, sliding retirement age. The disability pensions aspect has changed, something we're going to talk about in a bit. Now as it goes to the House and Senate, are you concerned that your bill will face death by 1,000 cuts?
Well, first, good morning, and I'd like to, we're taping this on Veterans Day, and I want to say thank you to all of the veterans out there, including my father, who's a World War II veteran, and just take a second to appreciate their service to this nation. Am I concerned? I will not stop, as I've said, until this bill is passed, and if those changes happen, I'll have to come back in January with a bill that corrects those changes. I have had a commitment from the Speaker of the House and the Senate President that they are committed to passing this bill as is, that they will do their best to beat back these, floor amendments that you talk about. I think that we are so close right now. We are so close to passing a fundamental reform that many people thought we never could, and I'm going to be advocating as strongly as I can to pass it as is without these death by 1,000 cuts that you speak of.
As is, as it stands right now, as in the bill that came out of both finance committees, are you okay with the changes that we discussed in the open, the COLA possibly every 5 years if the markets perform well, changing of the retirement age, so on and so forth? Are you okay with those changes right now?
I am okay with those changes. I should say that I think the legislative process has been a good one. We listened to 30 hours of testimony. We've had countless hours of really good working sessions with the Speaker and the Senate President and myself and our staffs. And I would like to say that these amendments to the retirement age and to the COLA are actuarially sound. They don't change in any way the intention of the bill or the integrity of the bill. If this bill passes as amended, still saves taxpayers about $4 billion over the next 24 years. Upon enactment, the fund will go from 48% funded to 60% funded. Next year's tax bill for the pension will be a little bit less than what it is this year. So it is still a really robust, well thought out plan.
Now I have to ask, here's the second draft. We got it last night at 7:15 p.m. from House Finance. It was still warm because they'd been printing it. And with that in mind, how can you be sure? You've told us many times you needed time to do actuarial runs on the bill to make sure it was sound. If this was warm at 7:15 last evening, less than 24 hours ago, how can you be certain everything in here still meets the goals you set out that you spent 9 months, 10 months getting to?
Because we have done the actuarial work all along. And again, that was to Tim's question. You will notice in there, these are very thoughtful amendments. For example, the COLA is coming back now once every 5 years. That costs something, but the COLA is also now on $25,000, not $35,000. So these were well-considered, well-structured amendments which, taken as a package, will continue to get the job done. But back to your very first question, will I approve of or support any further tweaks? No. Any death by 1,000 cuts? No. because this has been run through the actuary, run through the budget, run through my office. It works. Any tweaks on the floor, I can't support.
Treasurer, how do you respond to critics who say that leaving the locally managed pensions out of this bill will consign some communities to perpetual property tax increases and perhaps even bankruptcy?
Well, the locally managed plans weren't left out of the bill. There is a section in the bill which addresses the locally managed plans. And so
it's significantly watered down, though, and I don't think Mayor Taveras and Providence, Mayor Fung and Cranston would really be happy with this. They really say that this is going to result in property tax increases and service cuts. Is that not a legitimate concern?
If those mayors don't address their pension problems, those results that you just said will come about. And I think that those mayors have to do the hard work of fixing their pention problems, and I stand ready to help them.
I mean, they lost, Providence lost their COLA fight, if you will, in the courts. You were quoted in a Ted Nesi article saying, in addressing Alan Fung, why wouldn't we work together with Alan Fung to come up with a buyout scheme for his closed plan? What does that mean? What does the Treasurer's Office plan to do to help, and specifically, what does a buyout scheme mean?
Right, okay. So let's back up for a second here. Clearly, there is a problem with the municipal run plans.
We should say those are 36 plans that aren't in the state-run pension system, which is the one you have direct control over and the Assembly has direct control over, and there's some outstanding legal questions, and that's what's at issue here about control over those plans that are run by the cities.
Yes, absolutely. So my work as treasurer and what I have authority over are the state-administered plans. And so the work that I've led over the past 11 months has been focused on the state-administered plans, and that is set out in a statute, and that's what this 100-plus page bill is designed to do. Separate from that, there are set out in contract 36 other plans run by cities and towns. And to his credit, Governor Chafee has done a good job of saying these plans are important too, to the whole fiscal status of our state, and I agree with that. Unfortunately, that part of the bill, which you referenced, Ian, didn't have the same thought and work and analysis and rigor, and was kind of put in at the end before we submitted the initial bill. And through the weeks of testimony, including legal testimony, we, the General Assembly leadership, realized it has to be addressed, but the way it was initially put in probably wouldn't pass legal muster and wouldn't get the job done. So I remain committed to helping these mayors and working with these mayors. But you have to realize, and this goes to your question, Tim, what we've done to get to this point in the state-administered reform has been, 100+ actuarial runs, meetings with all stakeholders, analysis of every aspect of the plan. So the mayors, for instance, are very focused on a COLA suspension, which will solve their budget problems for a year or two or three. But the state could have done that too. The state could have just said, let's suspend the COLA and call it a day. That is not the way to do comprehensive pension reform. They have to do the same hard work that we have done, analyzing every aspect of the program and then putting forth a comprehensive plan, which is what this piece of legislation calls upon them to do.
Two-part question. Is it fair that current police and firefighters in Providence, for example, have made concessions to help the city with its fiscal challenges, while at the same time retirees from those departments are still getting 5% and 6% compounded COLAs? Is that fair, and how does the city get at that issue?
So I am by no means an expert in Providence collective bargain for agreements, so I can't tell you the specifics of exactly what's been negotiated for. I know Mayor Taveras just recently, a couple of months ago, renegotiated and signed contracts, and I'm not sure what was in those contracts. In Providence, there's no doubt about it. There's a problem with these 5% and 6% COLAs, and it seems unsustainable. I think a very important point that it must be made here, and it was made very clearly in testimony by lawyers, is that whatever a city ordinance could do to solve these municipally run plans, that's what a state ordinance, the state statute could do. So there's a huge misconception, I think, out there among mayors that the state has a greater legal authority than the cities. And you asked this question about, hasn't Providence tried?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's true. Several years ago, Providence tried to pass an ordinance, did pass an ordinance, to suspend these COLAs. And the judge ruled that was impermissible. That's law in the books. That law will present a huge hurdle to the state of Rhode Island for passing a statute, and the same hurdle for city ordinance. The only way to overcome that hurdle is to say there's a necessary public interest which enables someone to break that contract. The state's lawyer, I think, did a great job in testifying. He said it's like baseball. You know, the city ordinance is minor league, and the state statute is major league, but we all play by the MLB rules. And so it is a huge misconception to think that somehow the state is on surer legal ground to suspend COLA than cities.
Let's talk about some of the amendments that came out. One of them that sort of was, well, not sort of, it was an 11th hour change, was the disappearance of your proposed changes to how to deal with accidental disability pensions. These are tax-free disability pensions handed out to workers who are hurt on the job, and they are by far the most lucrative pensions that you can get. It's unclear to me what exactly happened to your changes with the disability pension, so if you could shed some light on that.
Mm-hmm. It was a little bit, that was a little bit of a surprise, and you know, I know that disability is something that the leadership, the House and Senate Finance chairs have worked very hard on, and they passed legislation just in this last legislative session around disability. And I think it was their view that they want to have a little time for that set of reforms, which was just enacted, to kind of roll through the system. What I would say about disability is we do need to look at it. You know, disability is expensive. And there is no place at all for, fraudulent disabilities or problematic disabilities. And I will continue to look at the issue.
Well, you already did. So your office said months ago that an audit found some inconsistencies, some missing paperwork. Mm-hmm. Where are we on that?
Yes, great question. In fact, I was just going to bring that up. So when I came into office, we found the inconsistencies, did the audit, and we have internally revamped the way that we do our administration of disability. It is much tighter. We have made it much more systematic. We are calling in a much more systematic way for income verification as well as continuing statements that folks are disabled. So I think my position on disability is that I respect the legislative process. I respect the committee's decision to take that part out of the bill, but we have to keep looking at it.
I spoke with continuing the theme of amendments Tim brought up, I spoke with a rep about 2 weeks ago, and it was interesting. A Democrat, a pensioner herself, she said to me, I'm fully on board with the treasurer. We need to do this. You know, my fellow friends who are teachers, don't like it, but we've got to do it. Then she said, of course, if an amendment was brought up to bring the retirement age back down to 62, I'd vote for that. And she didn't see an inconsistency there. I spent enough time with your meetings and everything to know that would change the finances significantly. So do you see an inconsistency there, and are you concerned about people thinking like that? I'm fully on board with the Raimondo plan, but I would also support bringing the retirement age right back to 62.
Yes, of course. I think that the thing that we have to do, here we are in the home stretch, we've been at this now for a year, we have to keep our eye on the big picture. And the natural temptation when you look at a piece of legislation like this is to zone in on, is it fair to this particular person in state service? Let's just look at this one particular piece of the legislation, and we have to stop doing that. The time is now to pass this bill and to focus on the big picture, the $4 billion of savings, the fact that this system will never run out of money if we do this. As a reform, this is substantial, enormous, and fiscally solvent, and good for pensioners and good for retirees. So we just need to say, pass this bill. Let's make history here in Rhode Island and get this done. We
have to take a break on the program. Of course, our conversation on pension reform will continue. Our guest this week is General Treasurer Gina Raimondo. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi and political reporter for Rhode Island Public Radio, Ian Donis. Our guest this week is General Treasurer Gina Raimondo. Ian.
Treasurer, there's a lot of overlap between your support for pension overhaul and the work of a group called Engage Rhode Island, a private nonprofit group. It's not legally required to disclose its contributors, but wouldn't it be in the public interest for Engage Rhode Island to say exactly who is providing its funding?
I think that I've looked at their website, and they seems like they have disclosed all of the people that are involved. As far as I understand it, they are following the practice of what many 501c4s do, which is respect the anonymity of those who contribute. So.
But isn't it possible that there might be a conflict if people are contributing to that, and they might, if they're not disclosing who they are, how do we know that they will not financially benefit from pension reform? Isn't it possible that some of the groups that would like to design the contribution plan for public employees could be contributing to this group?
That's interesting. I think everyone benefits financially from pension reform. Every single Rhode Islander, every Rhode Island business, every school teacher, every person in the system benefits financially from pension reform. And this is an everybody issue. So I have no doubt that people funding it have a self-interest in pension reform, because everybody does.
I want to ask you a question about the tone of the debate, late in the debate here. There was a video released by National Education Association, which obviously isn't supporting the bill and isn't happy about it. And I want to show you, they put this up. Again, this is a union video, but they have this picture of you pumping your fist to rally supporters at the Engage Rhode Island rally. And we don't need to leave it up there for long, but others, Governor Chafee, House Minority Leader Brian Newberry, who's a Republican, have said this isn't something to celebrate. You know, we're hurting people with this bill, and we have to be aware of that, but it's necessary. Do you regret the fist pumping or anything else in the tone late in the game here?
No, I don't. You know, to be clear, it wasn't fist pumping. There was somebody up in the balcony that gave me a thumbs up, and I gave him a vigorous thumbs up in return, just like that. But look, I think this is something to celebrate. You know, that rally was a wonderful rally. It was diverse. There were children. There were people of every race and economic background, a lot of social services people. And the theme of that rally was, this is about the future. And my comments, it's interesting they don't play any of the sound, my comments were, we as Rhode Islanders owe it to one another to get this pension reform bill passed. We owe it to every school child in Rhode Island to have well-funded and flourishing public schools. We owe it to every teacher in this system to shore up this retirement system so there is a retirement there for her. And so I'm quite pleased and proud of that rally. And the day this reform passes, we will be setting Rhode Island down a path of economic prosperity and security, and a pension that is well-funded and secure. So to my mind, that will be a day to celebrate.
Do you think that was a low blow or an irresponsible use of that video then?
I think it's a distraction. I think there's a lot of distractions now. I would prefer people focus on the substance and actually getting people together and educating. I find that a lot of the material that has been sent out, you know, has been misinformation. I get hundreds of postcards in my mail.
Anything in particular, any talking point you want to smack down that you think is getting out there?
Well, you know, just so much of it is misinformed. For example, why are you taking my pension away? I already pay for the majority of my pension through my contributions. This isn't true. The reality is we have a system today that'll run out of money in 30 years if we don't fix it. Folks aren't paying for the majority of their pensions. It's broken. It's not working for anyone. Let's get together and fix it.
Was Governor Chafee truly involved in the day-to-day development of the pension overhaul package, and how did you find it to work with him? Was he a good partner in developing that?
He's been an excellent partner. You know, I have to thank him for sticking with me the whole way through. You know, I think that, I mean, obviously...
He's taking some tough hits at this point. That union we just saw, they supported him last year, and they're not pleased at all.
He is, and he's standing strong. And I think he's shown his ability to stand strong despite the tough hits. So I think we've worked very well together.
I want to ask you, going back to the nitty-gritty of the pension reform bill, about, again, accidental disability pensions. If an employee that's going to be in the hybrid system, if this passes, gets hurt on the job, do they then collect a full-blown accidental disability pension from here on out?
Yes.
Are you concerned at all that that might be tempting? And I know many people may scoff at that, but you can easily point at Providence in the early 90s when there was a flood of accidental disability pensions that were handed out, and that's a key reason why Providence is in a lot of trouble, and that was at about the time when they were offering a generous compounded COLA. You worried about that?
It's an excellent question. I don't know if I'm worried about it, but we have to be vigilant. You know, we have to be vigilant
in how you hand them out.
how we hand them out. back to what we were talking about before, you know, my office in particular, I have to keep a close eye on it. No disability should be awarded if they're not meritorious. And if we see a flood, we have to double down our efforts to be vigilant. There is no place at all, and I will not tolerate disabilities that are given that shouldn't be. And so if we have to redouble our efforts to monitor that, that's what we'll do.
You know, the politics and the substance do come together for the reps and senators who are going to be asked to take a vote next week. That's going to be a tough one for a lot of them. This is a Democratic state. A lot of them depend on union members supporting them. And if someone takes a vote here and then is, whether they're targeted directly by labor unions or just have a lot of constituents who are angry with them for the vote, will you support them next year? Will you have a lot of money in your campaign war chest? Will you help them with financial contributions? Will you walk their district? Are you making those promises, or have you thought about that? Because that might be part of the calculus for them this week.
Mm-hmm. I will be there for them because, and I think all Rhode Island will be there for them. I want to say to all the legislators who are listening, do the right thing. Have the courage to do the right thing. Follow your leadership. Follow the Senate President. Follow Speaker Fox. Be a leader. Have courage. Not only will I be there for them, supporting them, walking with them, their constituents will be there for them. Rhode Islanders are demanding action, and the legislators owe it to Rhode Island to deliver that action. Now is the time to muster courage and vision for the future. They're going to do it. They will do it.
This pension issue is also playing out in court, as we know. How do you see that playing out? Is there a point at which the unions throw that in because it might be contrary to their interest to pursue it in court, or will this be a prolonged battle?
And could they get an injunction, too, and prevent these from taking effect in July?
Anything is possible. This bill has been crafted very carefully to withstand legal challenge. You know, there's a whole section in the bill around legislative findings, laying the groundwork for necessary public purpose. There is no contract, so we are on solid ground. You know, back to your question about the independent municipal plans, that's why I'm saying, of course we need to solve that, but we can't be reckless. We can't be reckless. We need to do our legal diligence and our actuarial diligence for those plans, just as we've done with the state. I have no doubt there'll be legal challenges to this piece of legislation. No doubt about it. I wish it weren't the case. I think it's regrettable. I think we'll win.
I picture Mayor Alan Fung of Cranston at home yelling at me through the television because I let you off the hook and didn't ask, have you finished that question. You said that why don't we work together with Alan Fung to come up with a buyout scheme.
Yes.
What is that? Are you saying, you know, cut retirees a check and say thanks for playing?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I should have done that. So one of
That's my job.
One of the plans in Cranston is a closed plan, which means there's no new people entering the plan and paying into the plan.
Yep.
So first we do the study and we figure out exactly what the situation is, but one of the options that could be considered is, as you say, which is close the plan down. Yes, cut a check of some amount to individuals there and just move on.
At what point does a pension plan have to get to for that? I mean, that's a drastic step.
It is a drastic step, and I'm not necessarily advocating that step. My only point in saying that to you is every one of these 36 plans needs its own solution. And it is reckless and irresponsible to just legislate one solution. There is no one-size-fits-all. Alan's plan is small, very poorly funded, and closed. There's no new people paying into it. I don't know what the solution is, but I can tell you it's going to be different than for Mayor Taveras, which has big, active plans with people paying into it. We have to be creative. My point to Mayor Fung is, let's get creative. You know, the grandstanding and the politics is just not helpful right now. Let's get to work, sharpen our pencils, and figure out a creative solution.
The city we haven't mentioned yet, East Providence, I'm expecting the state will probably step in next week and perhaps appoint a fiscal overseer, the first step toward a potential receivership there. I'm just wondering, A, how concerned are you about that with what we saw in Central Falls last year and other cities teetering? And second, pensions are a part of that. They only made 20% of their contribution in 2010. They're only 49% funded. They assume an 8.5% rate of return. What's your view on the East Providence situation?
I haven't studied East Providence in particular, but of course I'm concerned. I mean, we have to move with urgency. I think that one thing I've learned, having only been at this for 10 months, is you can't work fast enough and hard enough. And I think East Providence is like that. But there'll be other cities right behind them. They are next week. Providence is in trouble too. So we have to just keep our heads down. Pension reform's not over. You know, fiscal reform in Rhode Island is not over.
This
In many
isn't the
ways,
end.
we're just beginning.
30 seconds left. Are you saying, are you anticipating further bankruptcies from other municipalities at this point?
I'm not anticipating it, but we have to take action now. I mean, clearly, many of these cities are headed down the wrong path. Central Falls, we could have anticipated that. It's not magic. It's why I'm focused so much on fixing the state. State pension fund won't run out of money in a couple of years, but it will if we don't do something. So now's the time for action. Let's act now to avoid all future fiscal disaster and bankruptcy.
Okay, as we talked about at the top of the show, the changes are a lot of changes, or there are some changes to the bill. The bill is very big, but we have it on our website if you'd like to see it, WPRI.com. There you can also check up on some of the best pension coverage in the state with Ted Nisi. You can follow him on Nisi's Notes. If you missed any of this program, it's under the on-air section. I want to thank Gina Raimondo, our General Treasurer, for being here. For Ian Donis and Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.